Welcome to the Put On Waivers Media Group, home of the Put On Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
Yeah, kind of, Frank, what can you tell us about Parham for Raider fans out there that aren't familiar with him, didn't get a chance to see him, didn't study the tape? And what kind of player do you think the Raiders are getting?
Well, for one, I think the first thing about Dylan is that he's a versatile player. And I think it's important, especially when you talk about teams when, attrition sets in as you get deeper into the season. He's a player that, different positions if you need him. If you look at him on the draft board, a lot of people were pegging him at center, and he hadn't even played center at Memphis, in a game. And so that just speaks to the versatility that he has to where you can move him around if you need to. And I think that's important for a coaching staff to know you have a versatile player in that way.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like he's been getting, majority of reps as a guard, but he has spent some time in OTAs at center as the third string center. And I think the Raiders are going to try to work him in there. In the locker room, what kind of guy is Dylan? Is he a good teammate? What do you know about him off the field? And how do you think he's going to fit into an NFL locker room?
Yeah, I think Dylan's one of those guys that no matter which NFL locker room you put him in, he was going to find a way to be able to find a fit. He's just one of those type of guys. He's not a look at me type of guy. And if you look at his journey, part of his journey kind of speaks to the type of player he is in the locker room. When he first got to Memphis, he came as a tight end. That wasn't a good fit. They tried him out on the defensive line, and he finally found his footing in the O-line. So he's just one of those guys that he's just going to do whatever he can. One of the quotes, then when I was talking to him, he said, I'm going to do whatever I can just to get on the field. And so that's the type of aura that he brings into that locker room. He's not going to be anybody who won't do the dirty work in order to see the field. So I think that's a good teammate and a good player that coaches want.
No, definitely. The Raiders, the whole line is up for grabs other than left tackle. So he's going to have an opportunity to play either left guard, right guard, center, and having that makeup and being able to learn and pick things up quickly, but be a good teammate and trust the guys next to you. And if he can fit in and do that, he's going to have a great opportunity. You mentioned he came in at a different position. For those out there that don't know, what was he when he got into school? Kind of how much did he weigh, and what kind of progress did he make along the way?
Yeah, so how much he weighed when he got into school, I don't know that off the top of my head because I wasn't here covering the team yet. Okay. But, talking to Ryan Silverfield, the Memphis coach, he came in as a tight end. And Ryan said that the tight end coach was just like, he's not gonna work out here. It's just not clicking at the tight end position. Moved them to D-line very, very shortly. And Ryan said a different type of athlete may have given up at that point in terms of wanting to transfer or look at other options. And Dylan stuck it out. And at the time, Ryan was the O-line coach. And so he said, well, let's try him out here in O-line. And then obviously we see how that turned out. Now he's a Raiders draft pick. And so I just think his grit in finding his niche in this sport has allowed him to get to this point. And he said playing backyard football when he was a kid, he said he could never imagine that he'd be heading into the NFL draft as an offensive lineman, but that's how he ended up. And I think that speaks to because he's not the biggest offensive lineman in the world, right? Yeah. And so just knowing his journey of how he even got into that position kind of helps you understand his size. But the thing about Dylan is he's pretty quick on his feet, and so I think he'll do just fine there.
So, what kind of system did they run at Memphis? Were they more of like a zone team, or were they a power running team?
I'm sorry, you were
you broke up a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just asking, what kind of offense did they run there at Memphis? Were they a zone running team, or was it a power run scheme?
Yeah, they do power run scheme. They were pretty balanced, which is good for offensive linemen going into trying to get into the NFL, they were pretty balanced in their pass run attack, which I think helps offensive linemen. So he got really good work at pass protection and run blocking. And he had, I can't remember the number of snaps off the top of my head, but he hadn't allowed a sack all season in all of his snaps. And so I think that's a good point for him to know that, the pass protection is good. I think he'll do just fine in those areas in the NFL.
Dwayne?
Yeah, so as far as in Memphis, when you think about that state, you think about the Volunteers. But so like with that being said, the competition should we be worried about the competition that they played in Memphis as far as getting that going?
You said should you be worried about the competition that he played?
Yeah, they played against, yeah.
You mean in terms of
just teams, defensive linemen?
Oh, should you be concerned about the competition? Saying that?
Yeah. So he's played at Memphis. He's not at Georgia or Alabama. Some folks in our nation, of Raider Nation, they like to say, oh, but as soon as he gets beat, they're gonna say, oh, we drafted somebody from Memphis. We should have took somebody from Alabama or Georgia or
yeah. And so I guess to people's point in terms of just that conversation in general, you could argue there is some to that or whatever, but the bottom line is, these NFL scouts and coaches, they know what they're doing, right? And so it doesn't matter whether you play at a Power 5 or whatever. When you see something, you know whether they have it or don't, right? And so I wouldn't be too concerned about that. And that's not to say that there's not going to be a learning curve for Dylan, right? Every rookie, whether we're talking about Dylan, the offensive lineman or quarterback, whatever, there will be a learning curve. He will get beat at times. So that's not going to be void, but I don't think people should be too concerned that he wasn't playing against the Alabamas or the Georgias of the world, right? Because he wasn't the first offensive lineman to go off the board. So it's not like the Raiders picked him as the first offensive lineman in the draft. I think based off of where you got him at the point in the draft, his talent is going to fit that. He's going to be, he's going to show that he can play in the league.
So, and what are you hearing about people say because I know for us, when we look at the measurables, it looks like he is a little bit on the smaller side as far as the height goes at guard, but in rebuttal, all the people who we like kind of talk about him in the draft, they say, but he's a technician. Like he knows how to use his hips. He knows how to use his feet. He knows how to punch, all those things like that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think like I said before, his size is, I guess you want to say a knock on him, but the thing that he lacks in size, his football IQ. All his coaches will tell you that his football IQ is impeccable, and so that will help him, right? He knows what he's good at, how to use his mechanics. And I think that will take him farther than necessarily being bigger would, which is why, some folks in the draft were talking about teams possibly wanting to use him at center just because his IQ is to that level. And so I think he'll know, how to block bigger guys that are bigger from him. He's going to use, as quick as he is on his feet, he's going to use that to his advantage. He knows how to get around that because nobody knows about his size better than him, right? He's been undersized. This isn't the first time he's heard that he's undersized, going into the Raiders training camp. So he's learned how to work around that. And I think the mechanics that he has, he'll be fine. Now, the one thing that you may want to pay attention to in terms of like penalties, right? He had some penalties that, they weren't egregiously high, but that's something that he should want to cut down. And so that is something that I keep your eye on.
Well, we know about penalties.
Raider fans definitely keep their eyes on that.
we know about penalties out there and with the Raiders. His game against a lot of people immediately went to the game he had against Logan Hall. Kind of held his own there. So that's something that you can kind of look at that as well. So as far as the program itself, do you feel like this is getting people like this into the league and a possible guy who could start day one, a day one starter possibly for the Raiders is to help a head coach go out there and recruit and continue progress, because in that conference I got Cincinnati, people like that too. So Memphis has an opportunity with the new stadium coming up, right?
Yes, sir.
Opportunity to come to kind of take things to the next level.
Yeah, and before I answer that, I did want to say one thing about Dylan in terms of what some people may be worried about. The man is still learning the position, right? He's not like he's been playing this his whole life. He's been playing offensive line for about 4 years or so, and so year 3, year 4, year 5, he's going to be so much more comfortable in the position than he is now, that you're going to see that growth, because a lot of these guys who make it to this level have been playing their position since they were in Pop Warner. That's not his case. So he's still learning how to be offensive lineman, and he was still able to be a draft pick. So I think that will work in his favor. But to your question, yeah, Memphis, everybody talks about the running backs that Memphis has drafted, has gotten drafted. But it's not just the running backs, right? They've got kicker, you've got an offensive lineman. Calvin Austin was drafted as a receiver. And so I think just having that publicity for Memphis to tell high school recruits that, if your end goal is the NFL, you can do that here. And so going back to the question that you said some of the Raider fans had about the competition, and he wasn't going against the Alabamas, but neither was Darrell Henderson, neither was Tony Pollard, and those are doing well in the NFL. And so for Memphis to be able to say that, and then, like you said, on top of the new stadium, all those things are working in Ryan Silverfield's favor when he's talking to these high school recruits.
Yeah, cool. College football. This channel is Raider football and also USC football. How is Memphis dealt with the NIL? That's everybody's kind of like big thing now. It's like, NIL. Well, where's the checks coming from? The kid went to Miami. Got $9 million from their a little collective out there. Is there a collective out there, or are they? I mean, how's the head coach handling that situation?
Yeah, so there's a collective here in Memphis, and it's really a really cool deal, because it's deeper than just the NIL players getting money. There's a 901 fund here that was started. And they actually just participated. Some of the football guys participated in a donor blood drive, and so they're using this NIL 901 fund actually as a avenue to create money for charities. And so this collective here in Memphis has created the nonprofit has decided to go that route, using these athletes' likeness to create money for charity. And I'm sure they're probably getting some kickback for it, but to be able to use NIL in that way to continue to give back to the community at the same time, I think that's pretty dope. And so they've got that going on, but there aren't any $9 million deals going on here.
No,
this isn't that type of work.
He's not getting the beats deal that Caleb Williams got.
No. Now that's where you will have to go to the Alabamas or the Georgias or Miamis to get something like that.
That's true. Ryan, do you have anything else?
Yeah, Miami. You notice that as soon as that deal was announced, the kid going to Miami, here came, a lot of rebuttal. A lot of people saying, "Oh no," and then he even put out a quote today saying, "I chose it. I didn't choose it because they not NIL money, but $9.5 million, $9.5 million. You didn't have to take a pay cut to go to the NFL." It sounds like, but I'm old enough to remember when it was Memphis State and my guy Penny Hardaway was playing point guard. So I'm a little bit older nowadays, but it's good to hear. The program's on the upswing. You mentioned a lot of guys have been drafted. I was going to ask you specifically about Tony Pollard. Were you around when Tony was there?
No, I wasn't. So this is actually I'm going into my second season covering Memphis. I was covering Oklahoma State before this. So I wasn't around when Tony was there, but I know a lot about Tony. I'm not a Cowboys fan myself, but my father is a huge Cowboys fan. So he talks a lot about Tony and stuff. So but they were here for the spring game, not Tony, but Kenneth Gainwell and some of those other guys were here for the spring game. And I think going back to the recruiting piece, that's huge for any program to have your pros come back and just have that FaceTime with some of these athletes.
Definitely. You just mentioned a bunch of guys that got drafted. Calvin Offens, Austin obviously went to the Steelers. Kenneth Gainwell, Tony Pollard, Darrell Henderson with the Rams as a world champion. Parham. So, it sounds like the program's on the upswing. They're getting athletes. They're getting skill position players. But the biggest thing is it sounds like they're developing them, which is always the key. And they develop the recruits and get them to the National Football League. And that's only going to help them. So it sounds like, Memphis is on their way as a program and on the upswing in Conference USA.
Yeah, to the development point. I mean, Calvin Austin was a walk-on. Now he's an NFL, he's an NFL player. So that just speaks to the evaluation and development of these guys. Because not every program is going to be able to get the 5-star kid. But can you get the top 3-star kid or whatever, develop them into the talent you need him to be? And Memphis has done that consistently to this point.
Cool. All right. Well, Frank, thank you for joining us here on the Put On Raiders podcast. Dylan Parham is a Raider. He was a Tiger, and now it's nice to see that get some background for our Raider fans so they can kind of sit there and on that opening night against the Chargers, maybe him going up against that really talented defensive line out there in Los Angeles. We'll see what happens as far as that goes. I'll keep up the good work, man, and thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank y'all. I appreciate y'all.
No problem. Take care.
Appreciate you, Frank.
You too.
All right. Frank Bonner covers the Memphis Tigers football team. Talked about Dylan Parham and his impact that he could have with the Raiders here. Anything else you want to kind of add out here before we head out? I thought I did give a nice background for the player. That was kind of cool to hear what and it's kind of, you kind of forget where some players come from too, like when he's reeling off the players that came from the Memphis program. So it's just kind of cool to hear that as well.
Yeah, every one of these guys, has a story behind that we as fans don't know. So it's good to hear, a guy that's behind the scenes who's at the school, who's talked to the coaches, and just get to hear them talk about some of these players as we get to know them as humans. Not only, we get to know Dylan Parham as a man, not just the guard the Raiders took from Memphis, and then get to hear a little bit about, the program and how it's up and coming. And I couldn't have told you that those 3 running backs all got drafted in the last couple of years, but they're all Memphis Tigers. So clearly the development of skill position players there, if you throw in Calvin Austin as a wide receiver and in the running backs. And I was going to ask him about Tony Pollard because, he's going to be a free agent. Raiders are probably going to make some changes at the running back position next year. If Drake and Jacobs aren't around, he'd look pretty good in silver and black, but, Tony wasn't around, or Frank wasn't around. I'm sorry, when Tony was a Memphis Tiger.
Yeah, so pretty cool stuff there for you guys in Raider Nation. Let me see here. Was anything else? A couple quick things. Renfro under 95 catches.
I'm gonna go under.
Under, me too. I think that's the more you have to think. You have to think that with that. I mean, because that's just kind of obvious as far as that goes. Let's see, Mac or DeMarcus more snaps. Just overall snaps.
Who were the 2 players?
There's a guy that I got from Miami. Was it Mac?
Mac Collins.
Mac Collins, and then DeMarcus Robinson.
More snaps. I'm gonna say. I'm gonna lean Mac Collins because I'm hoping. Wishful thinking here, the Raiders are going to have some leads in some of these games and actually run the football.
Yes. Rushing touchdowns, over, just overall rushing touchdowns, over under 20. The Patriots had, I think, 21 last year.
I'm going to go under, but not by much. It's close because I think Waller and Adams are going to get used quite a bit in the red zone.
You got any? Up your head?
I'm going to go over under interceptions. Trayvon Merrick, 4.5.
I'm going to go over. I think there's going to be somebody in the secondary who gets interceptions this year. And I think he's going to be the guy who hopefully he and Casey Hayward won't crash into each other and then give a touchdown to T.Y. Hilton. like in the Colts game. But I'm gonna say there's gonna be a ball hawk in there. He has the most potential to be kind of that ball hawk guy. I think Rocky Sin will lead in PBUs, but I think he'll lead. I can see him leading in INTs.
Here's a tough one. Over under combined sacks and interceptions for Divine Diablo, 5.5. Can he get to 6 sacks and interceptions combined?
So he has to get to 6 sacks.
So maybe 3 sacks, 3 interceptions, 4 interceptions, 2 sacks, but can he get to 6?
I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to say that because I just feel like the way they're kind of babying him right now, they think they got a player. So they're going to put him in good positions to make plays. So I'm going to say, I'll say yeah. I'll say he gets that.
Right. Last one. Over under sacks. Bilal Nichols, 3.5. Can he get to 4 sacks?
I'm giving you some tough ones. I get tough ones. I'm gonna say yes, only because cousin, if you playing with Max and you playing with a Hall of Famer on the other side, I just how could you not? Like you gotta be able to get 5. I'm sorry, what was the number? The number was
3.5. Can he get to 4?
I would say so. I would say so. Can you imagine? I would say so. You think, and let's see. I think that's pretty much. I think the last one. I had one more. I think I had one more, but that was it. Cool. I think we had one question about do we think, let's just say one of these guys gets hurt on the outside. Do you see any way Nate Hobbs plays on the outside?
I would say not initially, because I think they have enough depth on the outside, because I think it's going to line up where you have Yasin, Mullen, and Everett as your top 3. Uh-huh. So I think you'd have to lose 2 of those 3 before you would even kick Hobbs out. And then where does Robertson fit into this? And I still don't think the Raiders are done if a veteran corner is out there that they like. I think you can still see them add someone to this roster.
I agree. More snap. Last one was more snaps, Butler or Farrell Jr.
I'm going to say Farrell Jr. because I think that he's going to rotate in with
the run stopper
with Hankins. And I think you'll have Hankins and him on the field and goal line packages, short yardage. And I think that they're going to give Hankins some breathers. He was on the field a lot last year, and I think he's more effective the less snaps you give him.
That's true. Cool. All right, Raider Nation. So I want to thank Frank Bonner for coming on. Covers the Memphis. I keep getting close to saying Memphis Grizzlies. I didn't say it one time. Memphis Tigers. And we talked about Dylan Parham. Got some over-unders for you as well. So always have fun with that. And next week, next week we'll see if I can hit on another guest. Keep that guest thing going every week until the season starts. And we'll be doing our top 5 favorite cornerbacks, corners and linebackers. So, and I will say this. Go ahead.
I have a caveat. What if they were drafted as a college linebacker and then they played defensive tackle, if you know where I'm going with that one? Does that count as a linebacker? Because I don't know if I can get to 5.
So they were drafted as a
played linebacker in college, was a defensive tackle with the Raiders. A pretty good one, too.
Okay. Because it sounds like I think I can get to, on top of my head, I can get to 3 in my lifetime. I'm not sure if I get to 5. I get the 5. So I get it. By cornerbacks, we can do top 10. I mean, I think we do in our lifetime. I mean, even when the Raiders were bad, they had some good corners in our lifetime. So yeah, that'd be good. And my favorite Raider corner of all time is I'll say my second. He'll be tied for first, but he's my favorite. He's actually my favorite Raider of all time. So stay tuned for that one. He's my favorite Raider of all time. Cool. All right.
Did you get where I was going with that linebacker conversion to defensive tackle? Do you know who that is?
I don't know that. Well, save it.
I'll save it.
Save it. I like to learn. All right, Right Nation, stay safe. We'll see you next time. Support the channel. We appreciate that any way you possibly can. Subscribe. And also, when you stay to the end of the video, that helps that YouTube algorithm pop off. So stay to the end. It's always some good stuff. All right. See you next time. Be safe out there.
All right. Take care.
Yep.